You say they were dominant. When did they last lose a race?
Well, as a crew, they're the crew that has won the Olympic Games, the World Championships for the 3 previous years before that. So, and they've managed to remain unchanged as they look towards 2009 and presumably on towards 2012. So there's not many crews where you can get 4 athletes, keep them together. And I saw them have breakfast with them actually this morning, and they were looking confident, relaxed, and looking forward to racing. One of them's 37 years of age, which is pleasing to see.
Yeah, and how do you keep the motivation of winning that many times and still going?
Yeah, and here we see the Canadian crew. Andrew Burns sitting in the 3 seat, the remaining gold medalist from the 8 last year.
So they didn't actually do the race for lanes yesterday, did they?
No, they didn't get involved in that, did they? But we see the British quad lining up. Missed out on selection for the Olympics last year. Here's that crew I was been talking about, the Polish. Many times world champions, Olympic champions. And then we got the Russian crew completing the lineup. New lineup from the crew that came 7th at the Olympic Games last year.
We've got a birth date of 72 in that Russian boat there.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I say, in the Polish boat, we've got a birth date of 71.
Russia. So it's the start of the men's quadruple sculls. Difficult conditions. Just talked to the British women's quad, who said it's absolutely murder out there in the first 250 metres. But good clean start from all crews. That's the Polish blades. You can see, I mean, these are such technicians. Look at that battering they're getting there.
They're getting a good battering on there. And this is one of the best technical crews we've got in this event. But you can still see how hard it is getting through the waves up there at the start.
Annabelle Bevington, who stroked the women's double to success and was 3 in the women's quad, I just had a chance to chat to her, and she said it is so difficult out there in the first 250. You've just got to keep your calm, just get over those waves, and they do start to flatten out as you go through 300 metres or so.
Yeah, and the Canadians have made the best of it here, haven't they? Again, another Mike Spracklin influence crew over here in Europe, and we'll be pleased to be heading the Polish and the rest of the field at this early stage in the race.
Well, I mean, that's great. And they chose to sit out the race for lanes yesterday.
They did sit out. Don't they look low-rigged to you in these kind of conditions to me?
Yeah, Spracklin likes to rig his crews low-rigged. I remember when he was coaching Steve Redgrave in the single, he had sort of, he tried to lower his rig and thought it was sort of more efficient.
In the British here we see
Sam Townsend in the stroke seat, Bill Lucas, experienced in the under-23 double sculls. Fantastic performances in that event. Just a shot of the Polish quad. I mean, these just sort of, they go off at about 40, mid-40s, and they go boom, straight into 34, which is their race pace. And I guess that's what they'll be at now, not far off, as they've gone slightly through Russia.
Quite a difference in technique, really. If you look at the Russians and the Poles, particularly in the British quad, they seem to be much longer at the finish. The British quad look very tight at the finish with their
British
hands.
crew really didn't look like they were finishing it out, which doesn't help you in this kind of headwind conditions, as opposed to these stronger looking men, particularly the Poles. I think they really look like they're strong guys, and they're able to hang off it and really move the boat right the way through to the finish.
But I guess they're at 33 now, the Poles. I mean, they really are the lowest rated crew in this event, aren't they? But they're there sort of inching
I've
out.
I've got them 32 and a half, actually.
32 and a half. I mean, that'll be one of the lowest rates that they'll have raced at this year. The stroke of that crew, we're looking at Adam Corral. He is the fastest single sculler out of this team. I mean, the rate on the screen says 35, but I think looking at it here, it isn't 35, is it?
Not to me. They look under that, and they look really solid and controlled, as best as you can be in those kind of conditions. As they now start to flatten out in the second 500, and hopefully come towards the second half, and they'll be able to we'll be able to see them flow the way we know they can. I
mean, yesterday the young British quad got close to them. I mean, we're looking at the Russians now, but of course they won the gold medal in this event in Athens in 2004, but this is a very different crew. But the British did hang on to the Poles in the race for lanes yesterday, which the Canadians over there on the far side chose to sit out.
Yeah, to be fair, everyone's hanging on to the Poles well, aren't they, here, coming into the 1,000 metres. Be interesting to see if that quality and power comes through in the second half.
Yeah.
The Poles are just sitting there looking at them all, aren't they? Very relaxed and comfortable.
I mean, if you're not catching crabs or losing blades, you know, that's got to be good in your first 1,000 metres, and you can do some work in the second K.
Well, by the sound of it, having spoken to some of the athletes who've been out there, I think you're right, Martin.
It's a good move in the second 500 from the British quad, and they do have, you know, they do have quality athletes, and this is the time. I mean, a British quad has not been in the final of the World Championship since 1982, and that's a long, long time for a nation like Britain not to compete in this event. And will this be the time that this sort of crew will make a breakthrough and get into the final of the Worlds?
We'll certainly see the standard all around, and I know the British trials were highly competitive. Lots of good single scullers, lots of people down under 7 minutes or around 7 minutes in their singles. So you've got to hope that it's time now the British can put together a quad, as we see them now, to prepare for London 2012.
Of course, they just missed qualifying last year to the Olympics. Sam Townsend, William Lucas in the stroke and the 3-seat, and then the manacle red Marcus Bateman, who's done so well really to change from rowing to sculling. He's in the 2-seat, and Charlie Cousins in the bow seat of the British quad. Moving through the Canadians, that's a really good move. They've really sort of sat in well, and I think maybe they haven't made mistakes, and they're trying to pick up on the Polish who are just a length behind them.
Yeah, if they're able to keep an overlap with the Poles, I think that'll be good going. They're at 34 strokes a minute. I still have the Polish at 32.5. Just sitting out front, as you say, Simon, controlling things in that wily way that they can.
Well, you mentioned the qualification regatta last year. Of course, Alex Gregory, who we saw winning the Cox's for, actually got injured and was supposed to be in the quad for that event. So maybe that would have made a bit of a difference. But Alex has now moved on to better things, if you like. And the quad's hopefully moving on behind him.
And the quad's moving on. They've moved up to 35 strokes a minute, and they look like they're making a bit of an impression on the Polish, yeah?
Yeah,
getting it all their own way.
Well, if you've rated 32.5 for the whole course, you're bound to have something for the finish, aren't you? I mean, it's what an incentive to, you know, to go head to head against Olympic champions for young lads like this from the British quad.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Polish coach last year was voted by all the rowing federations, and I think the oarsman as well as the coach of the year, actually, for his work with this boat being so dominant for so long. It's also a mark of respect from the rowing world, and they can get that award.
And they have picked up the stroke rate coming into the last 250. Let's see if they can really move away from the British, or whether the British can actually get stuck into them, because this is fantastic motivation for the British quad.
There's a look across there from Sam Townsend, the stroke man. You know, he can't see them, so he's got to look behind him to see how close they are. And they are moving up, not close enough. You see the red boys there, 200 metres to go. Canada on the far side, heading Russia, but Britain charging up the Polish bow the whole time. They are gaining, they're not going to get through, but it's a great finish from the British boat.
This is a great performance from the British boat. Look at that canvas against the Olympic champion.
Oh, that is such a good last 250.
I think the Poles got a bit of a surprise there, actually. I have to admit to being surprised as well, but that was very impressive. The Poles have to work pretty hard.
Take a look at the Poles, they're feeling that, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen a lot of impressive British wins today, but I mean, in terms of young talent, that is a really excellent performance. I think Jürgen Grobner might be as pleased as that as any of the performances from the British team.
I think you're absolutely right, because here we've got the standout crew of the Olympic Games, standout crew from the World Championships the last few years. Here's the British new crew coming in, one canvas behind them. It's fantastic.
I think that's almost the British result of the day, actually. That's a very impressive surprise.
Just see them there having a little drink, shaking hands with each other, feeling pretty pleased with themselves, I'm sure. They're probably a little bit surprised.
I'm sure they are. Do you think conditions would have affected that a lot?
Well, I'm not sure, because we didn't think that the British crew would really fancy the headwinds too much, whether they're really finishing out the strokes too well. Just see confirmation of it there. The Poles in 6:27.48. British pair half a second behind.
Yes, they didn't really get a great start looking at that, did they? They were instantly down.
No, they took it easy, didn't they? Tried to get away safely and solidly. Looking at the Poles, it was funny being at 32.5 through the body of the race in the middle.
Yeah, normally in these conditions you try and rate a little bit higher and keep everything moving. It tends to get very hard and heavy if you let the rate get too low in this sort of wind.
2009.